Hello everyone, my name is Ryan and welcome to another lesson in HTML. And this is a video that was recorded in February of 2015. And it was recorded several months after the initial video series in HTML and CSS. And the purpose of this video is to show you a little bit of HTML version 5, which has now been officially recommended as the latest version of HTML. This was done in October of 2014 after the initial video series was recorded. The initial video series in HTML and CSS used HTML version 4.01 of HTML, and that was the recommended version at the time of the video series. Now that HTML version 5 has been officially recommended, it is recommended that from here on out that you use HTML version 5. So I'm going to show you some of the differences between HTML version 4.01 and version 5, and then I trust that you can then use these to help you even as you watch the older videos to help you understand the differences between the two versions. Okay, so let's begin by looking at the doc type, and you'll see that this doc type, the second doc type that you see here, was the one that we showed you for version 4.01 of HTML, and you can see that this is considerably longer than the version 5 doc type. So here at the top is the version 5 doc type, here is the older version 4.01 doc type. So for now I'm going to remove this from the code, as you can only have one doc type in your code at once. So now all the browsers will know that we are using version 5 of HTML. All the modern web browsers support version 5 of HTML. The problem we have is older versions of Internet Explorer. So versions older than version 9 of Internet Explorer have problems. So Internet Explorer 8 and below do not recognize the new tags that have been introduced into HTML version 5. So they simply ignore those tags. So what we have to do to get those tags to work is to actually create some CSS to define these new HTML version 5 tags as block elements, so that they behave as a block. So some of the new HTML version 5 elements are the header element, section, footer, aside, nav, main, article, and figure. So this instruction over here will set these elements to be block elements so that all the browsers can understand these tags. Now, to correctly handle these tags in all the versions of Internet Explorer, we will need some JavaScript. So this piece of JavaScript over here will correctly handle those older HTML, will correctly handle the newer HTML tags, but in older browsers. So you'll see that there's an if statement here, which basically means if the browser version of Internet Explorer is less than version 9, then load this piece of JavaScript code. So it will load this piece of JavaScript code from googlecode.com, which someone has written, and then this code will automatically implement these CSS rules to define these new tags as block elements, and also be able to create those elements for the older browsers of Internet Explorer. So then by having this piece of JavaScript code, it no longer is necessary to define these CSS rules. So I can actually remove these CSS rules. Okay, so let's continue looking at some of the differences. The meta tag for the character set you can see that the older version of HTML defined quite a long meta tag for the character set. Instead of such a long meta tag, this has now been shortened in HTML version 5 to make things easier. So let's remove this older meta tag and then use this one from now on. So whenever you see the older one in the video series, please replace it with this one, which will be much easier to type out. You can still use the older version, it will still work just as well, but this one is just a much easier way of doing it. Then let's look at linking to external CSS. In the past we had a slightly longer version of the link tag, so the type attribute is no longer required in HTML version 5. So let me just remove that. So all your link tags can be shortened. Remember, the link tag is used to link to an external style sheet, which is preferred. It's a preferred way of adding CSS to your document. Alternatively, one can embed CSS into the head section using the style tag. Although I would prefer linking to an external CSS file. But just comparing the differences between HTML 4.01 and HTML version 5. HTML 4.01 needed the type attribute to tell the browser that it was text/CSS as the type of coding. But HTML version 5, you can just simply say style without the type attribute. So let me just remove that. And obviously you don't need to have these style tags if you've got a link tag, because you're linking to an external style sheet. So I'm going to remove those as well. Then in terms of JavaScript, adding JavaScript to your document. In the past we had a type attribute which was added to the script tag. This was in version 4.01. But now you can leave out the type attribute. So let me just remove that. So the idea is making life much easier in HTML version 5 by shortening some of the coding. Okay, now the script tag can also go anywhere else within the document. It does not have to go in the head section. In fact, many people these days are actually putting the script tag below the document so that it loads last, just so that all the other important content on the page loads first. But I'll just leave that up here for now. Let's look at some of the new HTML elements in the body section. So you'll see first of all a header tag. This header tag is used to define a header to the HTML page. And you can in fact include a lot of different items in that header, not just a heading. Could be text, and navigation could also be included in the header. You'll see also a nav tag. Nav is short for navigation, and it's now recommended to use this for your navigation. You'll also see a section tag, which defines a section of content within the document. Here it's used to define a large section of information. There's the ending section tag. And then the article tag is also a new tag, and it's used to define also a block of content. This block of content can contain pictures or headings, paragraphs, and so on. So in this case we are using 2 articles within one section, but we do not need to have a section. We could just have the articles by themselves, or we could just have sections by themselves. So it's very flexible in terms of how you use these new elements. Another new element is the footer section, which is quite useful for adding a footer to your document. In the past we used div tags, which stood for division, And in fact, we still use div tags. So div is just another one of the block elements we use to add content to our document. The difference between the div tag and these new elements is that the new elements also define meaning. They also have meaning to them, whereas a div tag is simply a block of content. Here, for example, the header tag is a block of content, so it's the same as a div. In that sense, it's a block level element, but the difference being that it now also has meaning to it. You know, if you look at this tag, you can clearly see that, oh, that must be my header section. In the same way, the nav element is a block element, so it could be replaced with a div. It's just that the nav element here gives us additional meaning to the content. Same with section and article, just gives additional meaning. So that's just a brief introduction into HTML version 5. There's still much more. There's many more tags that one can look at and many new features of HTML version 5. But hopefully this will just help you migrate from version 4.01 to version 5.